My sister Sabrina slapped me so hard in front of 200 wedding guests at the Ritz that blood from my split lip splattered onto Judge Margaret Chen's champagne glass, while my parents cheered, "Finally someone put you in your place," because I'd refused to sign over the deed to my $1 million penthouse that I'd earned through 80-hour work weeks while funding their golden child's entire lifestyle for 28 years. Not a family disagreement. A felony assault captured on multiple phones by guests who watched my 25-year-old sister attack her 33-year-old sister for having boundaries, while our parents treated it like Christmas morning because their successful daughter was finally learning respect. Yet at 33 years old, I'd spent my entire adult life working myself into exhaustion as a corporate lawyer to pay for Sabrina's cars, apartments, credit cards, failed businesses, and now her $200,000 wedding while being called selfish every time I wanted to keep something I'd earned for myself. When I bought my penthouse with 3 years of saved money, overtime pay, and zero family help, they immediately started planning how to transfer it to Sabrina because family shares everything, and selfish children don't deserve success anyway. Here's what made their celebration of my assault absolutely sickening. While I was bleeding at her wedding reception, my mother handed Sabrina a pen and property transfer documents they'd prepared in advance, expecting me to sign over my home, while my lip was still bleeding from their precious princess's attack. They were so confident I'd cave under physical violence that they'd brought legal paperwork to the wedding reception. What these delusional parasites didn't know was that their golden child's violent tantrum was being live tweeted by David Rodriguez from The Times, recorded by half the wedding guests on TikTok, and witnessed by a judge who specialized in prosecuting assault cases against women. By the time those videos went viral and Judge Chen's statement hit the morning news cycle, my entitled family was about to discover exactly what happened when you assault a lawyer in front of legal professionals and members of the press. To understand how my family reached the point where they celebrated me getting physically assaulted at a wedding reception, you need to know how the golden child system worked in our house for the past 3 decades. From the moment Sabrina was born when I was 8, our parents made it crystal clear that she was their precious miracle baby who deserved everything, while I was expected to be the responsible older sister who never needed anything and should feel grateful for the opportunity to serve their favorite. The examples are endless and infuriating. When Sabrina turned 16, our parents bought her a brand new BMW and threw a party for 50 people. When I turned 16, they told me I could walk or take the bus, because learning independence builds character. When Sabrina got into college, they paid her full tuition at a private university, bought her a luxury apartment, and gave her a monthly allowance of $3,000. When I got into college, they handed me financial aid paperwork and said I was smart enough to figure out how to pay for it myself. And then Sabrina failed half her classes because she was too busy partying, so our parents hired tutors and paid for summer programs to fix her GPA. I graduated summa cum laude from law school while working 2 jobs and taking out loans, and our parents missed my graduation ceremony because they were helping Sabrina move apartments for the 3rd time that year. Sabrina was the golden child who deserved everything I earned. But despite their obvious favoritism, I built something they couldn't touch or take away from me. I worked my way up from junior associate to senior associate at Morrison & Associates, one of the city's most prestigious corporate law firms. I saved every penny for 3 years, skipping vacations and working overtime until I had enough for a down payment on a penthouse in the financial district. The penthouse wasn't just a home. It was proof that I could succeed without their help or approval. 2,400 square feet of floor-to-ceiling windows, a private terrace overlooking the city, and a mortgage I could afford, because I'd earned it through 12-hour days and weekends at the office. Every piece of furniture, every renovation, every upgrade came from money I'd made with my own hands and my own mind. I earned it through 12-hour days and no family support. Meanwhile, Sabrina had never held a job for longer than 6 months. She'd burned through 3 different career paths, 2 business ventures that our parents funded, and countless opportunities they'd arranged for her through their connections. By age 25, she was still living off their financial support while planning a wedding that cost more than most people's annual salary. She expected my penthouse like she'd expected everything else. In her mind, my success was just another family resource that should automatically flow to her whenever she decided she wanted it. The conversation that would ultimately lead to my assault happened 3 months before Sabrina's wedding, during what I thought was a routine family dinner at our parents' house. We were discussing wedding logistics when my mother casually mentioned that Sabrina would obviously need to move into my penthouse after the honeymoon because newlyweds need a proper home to start their marriage. I nearly choked on my wine when I heard this. "What do you mean move into my penthouse?" I asked, thinking there had been some misunderstanding. My father looked at me like I was being deliberately obtuse and said, "Well, Sabrina and Marcus need somewhere nice to live, and you have that big place all to yourself. It only makes sense." Sabrina smiled that sweet, innocent smile she'd perfected over the years, and added, "I've already told Marcus about the terrace and the city views. He's so excited about having a home office with floor-to-ceiling windows." She was talking about my home like it was already hers, like my 3 years of saving, and my mortgage payments were just temporary inconveniences before the real owners moved in. Then my mother reached into her purse and pulled out a business card for a locksmith, sliding it across the table toward me. "You'll need to get copies made for Sabrina and Marcus before they get back from their honeymoon," she said matter-of-factly. "And we should probably discuss transferring the deed so they can start making it their own." Mom handed me a keymaker's business card, like it was decided. The entitlement was so breathtaking, so completely divorced from reality, that I actually laughed out loud. "You're joking, right?" I said, looking around the table for some sign that this was an elaborate prank. But their faces were deadly serious. They genuinely expected me to hand over the keys to my $1 million penthouse like I was lending out a book. "We're not joking," my father said, his voice getting that edge it always took when someone questioned their plans for Sabrina. "Family comes first, Vivian. You know that. Sabrina's starting a new life, and she needs our support." I set down my wine glass and looked directly at my sister. "Sabrina," I said quietly, "that's my home. I bought it, I pay for it, and I live in it. You can't just move in because you're getting married." They couldn't believe I said no to their golden child. The next few weeks turned into a relentless campaign of emotional manipulation and guilt trips. My phone rang constantly with calls from relatives I barely talked to, all suddenly concerned about my selfishness and my lack of family values. My Aunt Carol, who hadn't called me in 2 years, left a 15-minute voicemail about how family shares everything, and how disappointed my grandmother would be if she knew I was putting money before love. My father took a different approach, ambushing me at my office with spreadsheets and financial projections. "Look," he said, spreading papers across my desk like he was presenting a business case. "You're making good money. You can afford a smaller place and help Sabrina get started at the same time. It's the practical thing to do." When I pointed out that I'd worked 80-hour weeks for 3 years to afford my current home, he dismissed that with a wave. "You've always been the strong one," my mother added during our increasingly tense family dinners. "Sabrina needs more support. You've proven you can succeed anywhere. Why are you being so stubborn about this?" They painted my success as evidence that I didn't need what I'd earned, while Sabrina's failures were proof that she deserved more help. The gaslighting was seamless and practiced designed to make me feel guilty for wanting to keep my own property. The manipulation reached its peak when my father looked me directly in the eye and said, "You know selfish children don't deserve success. Your mother and I raised you better than this." Dad said selfish children don't deserve success. But instead of wearing me down, their pressure campaign did something unexpected. It made me realize I needed legal protection. I scheduled a consultation with my senior partner, Elizabeth Morrison, not just as my boss, but as someone who dealt with family property disputes for 30 years. "Let me get this straight," Elizabeth said, reviewing my mortgage documents and property deed. "Your family expects you to transfer ownership of real estate you purchased with your own money to your sister as a wedding gift." When I confirmed this was exactly what they expected, she shook her head in disbelief. Elizabeth explained that my rights as the sole property owner were absolute. No one could force me to transfer property I'd legally purchased, regardless of family relationships or emotional pressure. She recommended I document any future conversations about the property and consider getting a formal legal opinion if the pressure continued. "Your family is asking you to commit financial suicide for someone else's benefit," she said bluntly. My rights as property owner were ironclad. Armed with this legal clarity, I thought the worst was behind me. But I was wrong. 3 days later, Sabrina showed up at my law office unannounced, walking past security like she owned the place. She sat down in my client chair and fixed me with a look I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating, and completely different from her usual sweet princess act. "I know what you're doing," she said quietly. "You think you can embarrass me in front of Marcus and his family by making us look poor. You think you can make my wedding about your stupid boundaries and your selfish need to keep everything for yourself." Her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it that made my skin crawl. "Let me be very clear about something," she continued, leaning forward with that fake smile plastered on her face. "I've planned my entire future around having that penthouse. Marcus has already told his parents about it. I've already promised my friends they can see it after the wedding." She promised to make me regret saying no. The week leading up to Sabrina's wedding was like living under siege. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from family members, each message more desperate and manipulative than the last. "Think about what this will do to Sabrina's marriage," my mother wrote at 6 in the morning. "Do you really want to start their life together with this kind of selfishness?" By noon, my father had sent 3 messages about how I was destroying family unity and making the wedding about me instead of your sister. The worst part was how they'd recruited Marcus's family into their campaign. His mother called me directly, which was unprecedented since we'd barely spoken during their 2-year relationship. "Vivian," she said, in that syrupy, sweet voice rich people use when they want something. "I'm sure you understand how important it is for young couples to have a proper foundation for their marriage. Sabrina has told us so much about your beautiful penthouse." When I explained that the penthouse wasn't available because I lived there, she got quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Oh, I see. Well, I'm sure a successful woman like you can find other arrangements. Family sacrifice is so important for building strong bonds." The audacity was staggering. Marcus's mother was essentially telling me to become homeless so her son could have free luxury housing. They turned my sister's wedding into a battlefield over my home. As the wedding approached, I realized my family's desperation had nothing to do with helping Sabrina and everything to do with their social image. They'd already told their friends about Sabrina's beautiful new penthouse and Marcus's family about how generously I was supporting the young couple. My refusal wasn't just denying Sabrina what she wanted. It was exposing our family as people who couldn't deliver on their promises. The guest list for the wedding read like a who's who of the city's legal and business community. Judge Margaret Chen would be there, along with 3 other sitting judges. David Rodriguez from The Times was covering it for the Society page. Half the partners from the major law firms in the city had been invited along with Marcus's family's extensive network of business contacts and politicians. In their minds, this public setting would give them maximum leverage to pressure me. How could I possibly refuse their reasonable request in front of all these important people? How could I embarrass my sister by being selfish when everyone was watching? They thought public pressure would finally break me. On the morning of the wedding, I stood in my penthouse bathroom getting ready and knew exactly what was coming. They'd make one final play during the reception, surrounded by witnesses, who would supposedly shame me into compliance. They'd paint me as the selfish older sister who was ruining her baby sister's happiness out of spite and greed. But as I looked at my reflection in the mirror, the same mirror I'd bought with my own money in the bathroom I'd renovated with my own savings, I felt something I'd never experienced before in a family confrontation. I felt completely calm. I'd done everything right, earned everything honestly, and I had nothing to be ashamed of. I knew they'd make one final play at the wedding. Over the years, I'd kept meticulous records of every aspect of my penthouse purchase, not because I expected to need them in a family dispute, but because that's what lawyers do. We document everything. The paper trail was extensive and irrefutable. My mortgage application showed I'd put down $400,000 in cash money I'd saved from 3 years of overtime pay weekend work and skipping every vacation my colleagues took. The renovation receipts alone told the story of someone who'd invested their heart and soul into creating a home. $48,000 for the kitchen renovation, $22,000 for the bathroom upgrades, $15,000 for the custom built-in bookshelves in my home office. Every invoice was in my name, paid from my accounts charged to my credit cards that I'd paid off with my salary. But the most damning evidence was the mortgage statement showing I'd been making payments of $6,800 every month for the past 18 months, never missing a payment, never asking for family help. The property deed had my name alone on it. No co-signers, no family guarantors, no financial assistance from anyone. Every document proved I earned it without their help. My professional relationship with Judge Margaret Chen went back 5 years to when I'd first started handling corporate litigation cases. She'd presided over 4 of my cases, including a complex contract dispute that had made my reputation at the firm. We'd developed the kind of professional respect that comes from working together on high-stakes cases where precision and integrity matter more than anything else. Judge Chen had seen me work 12-hour days preparing briefs, watched me handle hostile cross-examinations with grace under pressure, and witnessed my commitment to thorough legal preparation. When she'd received her wedding invitation, she'd mentioned to me at a bar association meeting that she was looking forward to celebrating with our family. "You lawyers work so hard," she'd said. "It's wonderful when you take time to enjoy life's special moments." What Judge Chen didn't know was that she'd be witnessing more than a celebration. She'd be watching a family try to emotionally manipulate their daughter in public, and as a sitting judge who specialized in family law and domestic disputes, she'd recognize exactly what she was seeing. Judge Chen had seen my work ethic firsthand for years. David Rodriguez from The Times had been covering high society events and legal community gatherings for over a decade. He'd written about our family before, mostly puff pieces about my father's business success and my mother's charity work. Rodriguez knew our family's public image as successful, generous people who supported each other's achievements. But Rodriguez was also a real journalist who'd covered his share of family scandals and society drama. He had an eye for when public facades cracked and real personalities emerged. His presence at the wedding wasn't just social. He was there working, looking for stories about the city's legal and business elite. The irony was perfect. My family thought having Rodriguez there would pressure me to comply because I wouldn't want negative publicity. They had no idea that when families behave badly in front of reporters, the reporter doesn't ignore it. They document it. Rodriguez had covered our family's social events for years. The group chat I'd set up with my legal colleagues and business contacts wasn't meant as a weapon. It was just how our professional community stayed connected. But as the wedding approached and my family's pressure campaign intensified, I realized my network needed to know what was happening. I sent a simple message to the chat, dealing with some family drama around my property. May need professional support if things escalate at my sister's wedding this weekend. The response was immediate and unified. 23 lawyers, 3 judges, and a dozen business executives all expressing support and offering help. "Document everything," wrote Sarah Chen, a partner at a rival firm. "Family property disputes can get ugly fast." Marcus Williams, who'd helped me with my mortgage paperwork, added, "Your property rights are absolute. Don't let anyone pressure you into thinking otherwise." The solidarity was overwhelming. By wedding day, I had a professional network of 47 people who knew exactly what my family was trying to do to me, and they were all watching to see how it played out. My professional network would hear my side of the story. My strategy for the wedding was simple: attend as planned, maintain my boundaries with dignity, and leave quietly if the pressure became unbearable. I'd already prepared responses for the inevitable confrontation. When they asked about the penthouse, I'd say, "I'm not discussing my property today. This is Sabrina's wedding." When they pushed harder, I'd say, "I earned it, and I'm keeping it." If they escalated beyond reasonable conversation, I'd leave. I'd even planned my exit strategy. My car was parked in the hotel's valet area. Keys ready overnight bag, packed in case I needed to stay somewhere else if they showed up at my apartment later. I'd learned from years of family manipulation that having an escape plan was essential. You can't reason with people who refuse to accept the word no. So sometimes the only winning move is not to play their game at all. The goal wasn't to create drama or embarrass anyone. I just wanted to attend my sister's wedding, offer congratulations, and go home to my own bed in my own penthouse that I'd worked 3 years to afford. I planned to stay calm and leave if they pushed too hard. But I also knew my professional reputation was on the line. Half the legal community would be watching how I handled family pressure about property rights. If I caved and agreed to transfer my home to avoid embarrassment, every lawyer in the room would question my backbone in future negotiations. If I handled it with dignity and maintained my boundaries, I'd earn respect that could benefit my career for years. Judge Chen's presence was particularly important. She'd seen my work in courtroom settings, but this would show her my character under personal pressure. Could I maintain professional composure when my own family was attacking me? Could I stand firm on legal principles, even when it cost me emotionally? The wedding would be a test of everything I'd built my reputation on. The other guests included partners from rival law firms, potential clients, and business contacts who could influence my career trajectory. They'd all hear how I responded to unreasonable demands about my personal property. My career could survive family drama better than family abuse. So I made a decision that would prove crucial. I activated the recording function on my phone and placed it in my purse where it could capture clear audio, not to entrap anyone, but to protect myself. I'd learned enough about family dynamics and legal disputes to know that when people feel cornered, they sometimes say things they later claim never happened. If my family chose to make their demands publicly, I wanted a record of exactly what was said and how it was said. If they tried to pressure me in front of witnesses, those witnesses would hear both sides clearly. If things got ugly, I'd have documentation of who escalated and how. I hoped for the best, but prepared for their worst behavior. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom was everything Sabrina had dreamed of. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, and 200 guests in their finest formal wear celebrating her perfect wedding day. I'd made it through the ceremony without incident, offered genuine congratulations during the receiving line, and was quietly enjoying a glass of champagne when I saw my family approaching like a coordinated military unit. My parents flanked Sabrina and Marcus as they walked toward me, their faces wearing those fake smiles that meant business. Behind them, I could see Marcus's parents following along with several family friends who'd clearly been recruited for this moment. Judge Chen was sitting at a nearby table with her husband, well within earshot of whatever was about to happen. David Rodriguez stood near the bar, champagne in one hand and his phone in the other, clearly in work mode, despite the social setting. I realized with crystal clarity that my family had chosen this exact moment, maximum witnesses, formal setting, social pressure at its peak, to make their final play for my penthouse. Sabrina cornered me in front of Judge Chen and Rodriguez. "Vivian," my mother called out in that artificially bright voice she used when she wanted something. "We need to have that little chat we discussed about the arrangements for after the honeymoon." She said it loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear, ensuring that everyone would witness whatever happened next. Sabrina stepped forward, radiant in her wedding dress, and took my hands in what looked like a sisterly gesture, but felt like a trap. "I know you've been thinking about our conversation," she said sweetly. "Marcus and I are so grateful for everything you're doing to help us start our new life together." It was expertly done. She was speaking as if I'd already agreed to give them my penthouse, creating social pressure for me to go along with their fiction rather than contradict the bride on her wedding day. The manipulation was seamless, designed to make me look cruel if I said no in front of all these important people. "Actually," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the nearby tables, "I haven't agreed to anything. We haven't had any conversation about me giving up my home." I could see Judge Chen turning her attention to our group, her professional instincts clearly picking up on the tension. My father stepped forward with that condescending smile he'd perfected over the years. "Come now, Vivian. Don't make this difficult. Family helps family, and Sabrina needs your support more than you need a big empty apartment all to yourself." He was playing to the crowd, painting me as selfish, while they looked generous and reasonable. "Dad," I said, keeping my voice steady, "that's my home. I bought it, I pay for it, and I live in it. I'm not giving it to anyone." The words carried clearly across the ballroom, and I could see David Rodriguez discreetly moving closer to our group. That's when Sabrina's mask finally slipped. "You're really going to do this?" she hissed, her sweet demeanor evaporating. "You're going to embarrass me at my own wedding. You're going to make my husband's family think we're poor because you're too selfish to share." I said, "I earned it," loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yes," I said firmly, my voice growing stronger. "I earned it. Every payment, every renovation, every piece of furniture. I worked 80-hour weeks for 3 years to afford that home, and it's mine." The silence that followed was deafening. 200 guests had essentially stopped their conversations to watch this family drama unfold. Judge Chen was now openly staring her legal mind, clearly processing what she was witnessing. Rodriguez had his phone out, no longer pretending this wasn't newsworthy. And that's when Sabrina lost what was left of her composure. "You selfish bitch!" she screamed loud enough for the entire ballroom to hear. Before I could react, her hand flew across my face with enough force that the sound echoed through the reception hall. The impact split my lip and sent me stumbling backward into a cocktail table. The ballroom went silent, except for the clink of my champagne glass hitting the floor. Blood from my split lip dripped onto my dress as I stood there, stunned by the assault. Sabrina stood over me, breathing heavily, her wedding dress somehow making her look more unhinged rather than innocent. "Maybe that will teach you some respect," my mother said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Instead of checking on her injured daughter, she was looking at me with satisfaction, like the assault had been a long overdue correction to my behavior. The ballroom went silent except for camera clicks. Dozens of phones had come out as soon as the screaming started, and half the wedding guests had captured my assault on video from multiple angles. Judge Chen stood up from her table, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent decades dealing with domestic violence cases. "That was assault," she said, clearly looking directly at David Rodriguez. "What we just witnessed was a clear case of battery committed in front of 200 witnesses." Rodriguez was already typing on his phone, his journalist instincts fully activated. The society wedding he'd come to cover had just become a criminal justice story, and he wasn't going to miss a single detail. Judge Chen told Rodriguez this was assault, not family drama. By Monday morning, videos of Sabrina slapping me had gone viral across every social media platform. The hashtag #WeddingAssault was trending on Twitter, with millions of views on TikTok and Instagram. The footage was crystal clear, my calm refusal to give up my property, Sabrina's screaming tantrum, the violent slap, and my parents' approval of the assault. David Rodriguez's article in The Times ran with the headline, "Society Wedding Turns Criminal Bride Assaults, Sister Over Property Dispute." He'd included Judge Chen's statement that what she witnessed was a clear case of domestic violence committed in front of legal professionals, and noted that several attorneys at the reception were considering filing ethics complaints against my parents for attempting to coerce property transfer through family pressure. The public response was overwhelming. Legal professionals across the city reached out to offer support. My inbox filled with messages from women who'd faced similar family manipulation over their success. Even strangers commented on the videos, praising my composure under assault and condemning my family's behavior. But the most satisfying response came from my professional network. The partners at Morrison & Associates released a statement supporting my exemplary character under personal attack, and noted that Ms. Morrison's handling of family pressure demonstrates the integrity we expect from our senior associates. Judge Chen went on record, saying that my calm response to assault showed the kind of professionalism we need more of in our legal community. The video showed exactly who the victim was, and for the first time in 28 years, everyone could see it. As for my family, they discovered that actions have consequences. Sabrina's assault became a permanent part of their Google search results. My parents' social reputation was destroyed by their public approval of domestic violence. Their golden child's wedding will forever be remembered as the day she committed a felony on video. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in my penthouse, the home I earned through my own hard work, finally enjoying the silence I'd been fighting for. My phone doesn't ring with manipulation attempts anymore. My family doesn't show up demanding things I've earned. The toxic cycle is finally broken. I finally had the silence I'd been fighting for.